today we're going to review a few London Fashion Week styles. And London Fashion Week is really one of my favorite fashion weeks. It's slightly nostalgic because of course I studied in London and worked in London, and I also do adore the creativity of London, and that's of course what London is famous for. It's where you get all the new raw talent. They bring lots of great ideas and new interpretation, but of course that celebration of creativity maybe also sometimes means we're not pushing enough for the support systems young designers need, and the sort of commercial system which enables people to actually run a successful label. So a lot of labels start in London, and then after a few years you always they go off to work on the big houses, and it's always a bit of a pity that we haven't really got that big fashion industry in London. However, slightly off topic, a little dialogue. Today we are going to of course look at some beautiful styles, have a look at sort of maybe the vintage influences, see what works, what doesn't work. I won't rant too much because I like to be positive, and also sort of look at the details you might want to interpret in your own wardrobe. So lots of beautiful things to look forward to. If you haven't watched before, I'm Charlotta. I'm a fashion designer, pattern cutter, and now very passionately a teacher. And I love London Fashion Week because I studied, I did my fashion degree, my BA at St Martin's, and then I went back for pure pattern cutting, innovative pattern cutting, because I love pattern cutting so much. And then I worked in London as a designer and also taught fashion students, and now of course I teach you lovely people how to make your clothes. If you want to find out more, do have a look in the description below. But now let's have a look at some beautiful garments. One of my favorites at London Fashion Week, and I've sort of shared some of her dresses before, is Roksanda. She's been going for quite a few years now, and she's got a really strong signature. It's always beautiful colors, very, very wearable, beautiful dresses, but clever. Where the pattern, it's never just like she's done a basic dress and she's going to sell it for lots of money. Everything is exquisitely made, and I know from people who have worked with her that the quality is amazing, and the care she puts in each garment is really amazing. And one of the styles which caught my eye was this beautiful yellow dress. And can you see how it's got a really nice sort of fake draped bow detail? So we're gonna cover sort of a pleated bodice, and then you got the big, slightly I think asymmetric bow, and then slightly outwear shoes and a hat to round it off. But you can see the dress is really beautiful, and it reminded me of a dress Princess Catherine wore a while back, and it's Roksanda. It's a few seasons ago, and you can see both of them have really strong, really specific yellows. Neither of them is like your basic paint box yellows. They're both sort of, the one on the right, the new one for next summer, it's slightly bleached out. It's a really hot sunny day, and then of course the one on the left is a brown background, is a really citric lemony yellow. So just the colors alone make me happy because I love a bit of yellow. But then can you see on the older dress, which is called the Brigitte dress, you got the really beautiful bow on the shoulder. So again, an asymmetric fake bow, quite different styles, but it's sort of the same detail as such, and that's why I think she's such a good designer, because it's not just a copy or made a bit bigger or changed. She sort of completely changed the look, but it's still very much on brand. And that's what you sort of can think even when you make clothes on yourself, like what's the sort of thing you love? Is it maybe black and white, or is it sort of details? And you can sort of, on all the clothes you make, you can always have like a version of it, and then like your whole wardrobe will look really coherent. So even if you make stuff over years, you know, if you always use the same type of pocket but you put it in different places, you blow it up and blow it down, everything will go together. So I think that's why it's really beautiful, and I would like to know that. Let's have a look at it in a bit more detail. And of course, if you haven't done so, do give me a thumbs up, because it always helps with the lovely YouTube algorithm. And I like to, of course, also hear your comments. What do you think? Is it a good, is it, can you see why I'm saying it's similar? Or are you saying, Charlotte, what are you on about? It's completely different. So if you just draw them out, so just so I can talk you through it. So they're both quite similar. They got this sort of nice, quite a high neck. And then they both got a sort of drapey detail. On one dress, it's going down to the waist. And then on the other dress, it's actually going the opposite way. And then we got our waist seam. And then, of course, on this one, we got this sort of fake bow like that. And that is sort of, here it's sort of a bit different. It's going in two directions, but it's a sort of bow on both of them. And this one actually has the bow knot as part of a pleat. And if you'd like to learn how to pattern cut this dress, it is on my pattern cutting school, so you can learn how to pattern cut that detail from me. Have a look in the description if you're interested. And here it's a little bit different because she has actually sort of put the bow knot on top, but then again you have that sort of interesting drape detail which forms part of the bow, which I think why it's so clever, because it's not just, a bow. It's like a interpretation of a bow, but their part of the bow is part of a pattern cutting. So here the knot is actually part of the pleat, and here the sort of what we would call I don't even know what they call it, but one of the bow parts is basically part of the dress. So you can see why I think this is a really nice coherent design. So in my opinion, that is like perfectly executed. It's a detail I've reinterpreted, not just copied, made new, but still definitely Roksanda. Another brand which has a really strong signature is of course Burberry. And Burberry, probably like all of you, Burberry, you think the famous check, you might think that horse logo, and of course we think a trench coat. Burberry is pretty much can be used like a Hoover is a vacuum cleaner, a Burberry is a trench coat. Slightly more expensive. So that's their sort of theme, and I think when you have such a strong history, really strong signature, you have to always sort of show it. And their collection on the Fashion Week, I'm not going to sort of go a little bit negative. I try just to ignore the negative when it comes to fashion and just concentrate on the stuff I love. Like, I really not a fan of what's happening at Balenciaga, but I get it. Other people love it, I don't, so I just don't look at it, and I just look at classic Balenciaga. But I wanted to show you the Burberry, because while Roksanda, she's using a bow detail, but she's doing it in a real Roksanda way. Burberry did a similar bow detail, but you can see when I saw that, I don't know how your Instagram or YouTube is, but there's like a pattern cutting video which pops up from time to time. I think it's a Russian teacher, and she does that sort of 3D bow. And I think a few other people have done it. It's all over Pinterest, it's all over Instagram. It's like really like a show off bow. And it sort of fits with what she does, with just like evening dresses. And I saw this style on Burberry, and unlike Roksanda, where I can see, oh yes, she's always done bow details, Miss Burberry, I just thought, oh yes, I think maybe one of your interns has spent too much time on Pinterest, and he saw that pattern cutting detail, and he tried it out, or she tried it out, and the design team liked it. And it's a beautiful detail, but for me that just doesn't say Burberry. It's a statement pattern cutting detail somebody has been using to sell their pattern cutting course on Pinterest and YouTube for ages. So it just made me laugh. If you know who I mean in the comments, do let me know. And if you know who I mean, do put the link in, because her style is beautiful and it's a real big statement. I think it might have been used on the catwalk even 10 years ago, and then she sort of now made it to signature. If you know who it is, do let me know, and if you agree or not disagree. But I just thought it was sort of, it doesn't say Burberry for me. The same thing happened a few years back with the Magic Pattern Cutting books, which of course I have, like probably like everybody else. Very famous book. But after this came out, which is about, it's probably nearly 20 years. This is how long ago I was at St. Martin's, because there was a beautiful bookshop and they sold the original Japanese one, that one. So I have got the Japanese because that's the only one you could get, and I've got the English one because it's a little bit easier. But sort of at point, everybody had their book. We were all like amazed at how clever it was, and also how easy they make it, because they're really clever methods. But then, like over the next sort of 5 years, on lots of catwalks for quite good fashion houses, I suddenly saw these details pop up. This one, and there's like a bow and stuff, and you thought, yes, somebody's let the intern, have experiment, which is great, or somebody saw that book and said, oh, let's try some of this out, but they didn't reinterpret it, they just copied it. And I think, you can use a style like that and you reinterpret it and you make it your own. But if you just copy it, if you send that sleeve down the catwalk, everybody's gonna know. Well, fashion people, pattern cutters like us, are gonna know it's a pattern magic one, but you could of course reinterpret it to your own style. But that was a bit like beautiful Roksanda, a little bit disappointing Burberry, sadly. But now let's look at something really, really beautiful. My second or favorite collection of which season, which was Dem. In a second, I'm going to tell you all about the beautiful Dem, but I'm going to start off with a little mini rant. So last week I had a look at New York Fashion Week, if you remember, and I showed this rather, well, you can decide how you want to. I was not a fan. I thought it was really badly executed, very clunky, not that flattering. I sort of understand they were aiming at sort of primary, it looked a bit like a primary school, maybe primary school teacher style, but I think that's a bit of an insult to primary school teachers, which in general are actually very stylish from my experience. So I really didn't like this dress. I know a lot of you didn't. And the lovely Astrid said, oh, that's a little bit of like a very, very bad interpretation of a robe de style, which is a 1920s style, very famous by La Mer. And which has this sort of lower waist, but then it's got quite a full skirt which sort of goes out. So we all agreed, yes, it could very much be it, but it's really badly done. So looking at Dem, I was really happy to see some really beautiful examples of this style. So the whole Dem collection was very 1920s, and it had these two beautiful robe de style dresses even. So again, you can see the lower waist and the full skirt. There were also some really nice 1920s style suits again. And what I loved about it, quite often when people make sort of menswear for women, they don't really think about the female body, and the proportions are slightly wrong. These just looked like really nice 1920s suits. You could see the double-breasted, sort of oversized style, but really flattering and really stylish. So I thought I started the collection like that. There's a really beautiful suit, but then I wanted to have a look in a little bit more detail at these two robe de style dresses, because I thought they're really clever interpretation of fashion history. So not a copy, they're contemporary dresses, but you can clearly see the influences, but they have been updated. Both of them are very cleverly designed and pattern cut. So the one with the flowers has really delicate straps, and then it has some sort of drape detail, which again is very 1920s, but it's sort of been updated. And then it's just got a bodice with seams, I think, going roughly like this, and seams this way break up the print, so it's not one block of print. So it works really well because the print is sort of a bit like that, and when it's cut off, so it's not it breaks up the body, which always works really well. And then it has this really beautiful rope de chine skirt, and I think there is some underlining going on as well, which is why it's keeping its shape. But what they've done is really nice. It's actually a pocket. You can see her hand in it. So the pocket is part of the volume, and instead of just being a seam, which would be quite basic and also wouldn't really show off a detail, would just be a floral dress if we just had a seam there, what he's done is done a really thick band. So that's like, it basically is, it turns it into a focal point. I know it's not black, but then you also have it balanced out by the sort of drapery up there. So you haven't just got a flat dress, you have these sort of details which really draw attention to the silhouette. So it's really well done. It's really beautiful. The brand has been around for quite a while, and he really knows what he's doing. It's always very beautiful feminine dresses, but really well cut. It's never sloppy. It's like so much attention to detail. So that's a really feminine dress, but I love that 3D details. And if you wanted to sort of have this on a scaled down version, even if you look at the 6-panel skirt, there is a tutorial for 3D pockets. And again, if you add a band to the pocket, which I actually did, again, they make it stand out. I mean, you could actually angle it up, and you could even have a waistband in the same color, and again, you are sort of really directing the eye. So it's very well done. So otherwise this sort of detail might get lost, and it might just be a pretty dress, but that sort of panel really draws attention. This one had a slightly wider shoulder, which is sort of quite of its time. If I was doing it, I would probably make it slightly, maybe the arm was slightly wider, or maybe bring the shoulder in, but it's just because of my body type. And of course, that's the great thing when making your own clothes. You can look at beautiful clothes, and then you can design and pattern cut your own. Well, it's really cleverly done. Again, here we've got the volume sort of coming only from the sides, which again, and it's got a pocket, because I think it's sort of, Adam really sort of considers the wearer. So again, it's got pockets here. So you've got all this volume, which is perfect for big usable pockets. And it's like really 1920s style, but you have the volume only at the sides. But then what's really cleverly done is that you have these sort of diagonal seams, which I'm not sure it's cut on bias or not, but they also, again, they break up the bodice and sort of draw the eye. And then it's either, I think it's embroidery, it looks like it's actually like crystals. It sort of follows we've got one thing hanging down, but it sort of follows the seams, so it's sort of broken up. So again, it's not flat, because sometimes with some of these 1920s dresses, they can be a little bit flat, and if you see real ones, they sort of don't have a lot of volume, but they make you look sort of quite broad. So these are quite clever details to drawing the eye where you want to. And it sort of looks like if it was a print, it was sort of interrupted, but of course it's embroidery. And what's really nicely done as well is that you've got a really thick turn up, so it makes it look really luxurious. And again, it's sort of maybe of its time, I think, a panel. But I thought these were beautiful examples of a historic style interpreted really well. So we looked at some beautiful Roksanda and Adam dresses, and I had a little bit of a moan about Burberry and last week's New York Fashion Week Melka, I think it was. Let's finish off with some really beautiful design. Well, I think we're beautiful, but they're not, they're quite unusual, so I would really love to hear what you think in the comments. I think it's quite a young designer, Steve Smith, and he does these most beautiful gowns, and the shape of them have like a real, they feel very vintage, very classic glamour. They're sort of the long one, you can see that could be a chiffon drape down, and then it's got a full sort of mermaid skirt. And the shorter one, again, it's like maybe like even like a new look where you have a fitted garment and with a full skirt which is full of pleats. But you might have noticed they're not conventionally cut. What he does, and you can see his process on Instagram, for example, is called Steve. He's called Steve O. Smith. He does like a fashion illustration. He's very talented, beautiful ink, very quick. What you sort of think as classic fashion illustration, very organic with a real line, guides the eye. So it's not a technical illustration. It's showing you the story, the energy of the garment. When he enlarges it, he cuts it out as a pattern, his drawing. He then cuts that out in a black fabric, and then he makes the gown, which look like the illustrations but out of pure white. I think it's an organza probably, and then he hand embroiders the black fabric on it. So it's like a print, but it's really handmade, and it sort of shows it's really soft. And of course, by embroidering it on, you can really follow the fabric rather than printing, which has to be flat. So you can really use the fabric as it is, and it, for me, it's like an elevation of one of my really favorite MS 1950 style, which is again drawn style, in which case a lot more conventional tailored details rather than a fashion illustration, and then it was drawn on a simple fabric and then belted as a dress. So you can see that's a very wearable dress and a very commercial version of a Steve O. Smith, but you can see again it has that hand-drawn line, which really elevates a simple garment. Of course, the Steve O. Smith ones are not simple at all, they're beautifully made, but I love it. You can see, it's something which has taken a lot of effort, but I think sometimes nowadays, especially with couture, they go on about, actually I did look at the recent Balenciaga collection because it really annoyed me, the couture collection. One of the reviewers was saying, yes, this dress is amazing because they used, I think, did they use hair or something, and it took them 500 hours maybe of hand embroidery. And I was just thinking, yeah, but effort doesn't count for anything if the end product isn't beautiful or doesn't say something, because beauty, of course, is subjective, but it has to sort of do something, and this just left the Balenciaga left me cold. This one, these garments show the real human touch. We have a sort of 2D illustration, the fluid lines, and it works really. He's very talented how he moves it around the body, so he's got both the effort and the beautiful outcome. It's a bit like, sometimes you have to be objective, as yes, you invested a lot of time. Like I played the saxophone for 10 years. I practiced a lot. I will never play in a big band, I think. So it's a bit like that, just because you invest a lot of time, and it's quite hard, even when you make a dress and you spend a few days doing it, and the trial was good, and when you put on the final thing and something is wrong, and it's really hard at that point to just put it away in the box and revisit, or actually say, this is so wrong, I can't fix it. I have to sort of admit it's not good enough. So this is the opposite for Steve O. Smith. It's just really beautiful. It's where you have a vision, which is the illustration, which again is talent and hard work, learning how to illustrate, and then the way he's applied it to garments. I really love it. I'd love to hear what you think of those, whether you agree, or you just say, you're going on about some scribbles on a dress. It's quite nice, but I don't know what you mean. For me, it's also, I think, I'm talking to you through a screen. A lot of fashion illustrations nowadays, especially technical, it's all done on the computer. It's perfect lines, perfect colors, but it sort of loses that human touch. So these are garments, they're made by somebody that have that sort of human, organic fluidity. I just think they're beautiful. So this is my high note from London Fashion Week. I was very excited to see that he was showing, and I love it. So let me know in the comments, did you agree with my choices? Was there anything I should have looked at from London Fashion Week? There's a few I sort of liked as well, but there's only that much time. I would love to hear in the comments, and of course I would also love a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. And that's it for now, I will see you again soon, and we might look at some Milan Fashion Week and have a look what Prada and Marni are doing. Bye everybody.